Hello, beautiful people.
What's up, guys?
Yes, I hope everyone's having a wonderful Tuesday on this Valentine's Day weekend, or week rather. And on Friday we'll be having our beautiful V Day, and love will be in the air, and people will be in relationships, and some relationships will be brand new, and some will be like ours, where we've been together for 20 years.
20 years.
20 years strong, and always working through things. Hi, Barbara. How you doing? Hey, how you doing, Lisa? How's it going, Melissa? So we just wanted to share something, right? And be a little vulnerable here on the call. Hey, Lauren. Or on this live, right? Something came up with Mika and I that was just a huge revelation, and I think it's going to be really valuable for anybody who's listening. If you're in a relationship, if you're looking to get into a relationship, or if you're in any relationship with anybody, if you're just fine where you are and you have a relationship with family or friends or kids even, I think this is going to be valuable. Hey, Summer, how you doing? So I'll let Mika share a little bit about what happened in our relationship and how this, I think it'll be a revelation for everybody here.
Yeah. So like Cleo said, we'll go a little bit deeper on Valentine's Day, but just to get everybody up to speed. So, there was something, Cleo and I have been together for 20 years. 20 years, that's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And we love each other very, very much. He's my best friend. But there was something in the space between us, and it's been that way for a little bit. Like I'm almost like tearing up just thinking about that, And it's something that we didn't really talk about, because we're good friends. And on a friendship level, everything felt good. But there was just something in the space, and it was really whatever that thing was that was in between us was really affecting our intimacy. Like I said, it kind of felt like we were becoming just buddies,
Great buddies.
We get along really well, but
wonderful parents.
And great parents. Yeah.
Some of you may,
keep going.
Well, I'm just saying, some of you may relate to that,
Yeah.
being in this relationship and you have kids and you're great parents, and some things that maybe you had prior to you having kids maybe sometimes get put off to the side because life. We make this excuse that life gets involved. But I'll let Mika continue to share of what happened in our relationship here.
Yeah. So, stuff started to happen, especially when it was with the kids and parenting styles. Kind of, there was a little bit of friction, and it started to drive like kind of an even deeper wedge between us. And so we were just, we had kind of everything kind of came to a head a little bit ago. And, we were in a space where we just were looking at each other, and we were both like, I was crying, and we were just looking at each other like, we don't want to go on like this. We don't want to just be buddies here. What happened? What happened to our intimacy? Why am I relating to Kaleo in a certain way? It just something felt really off. And we wanted to get to the bottom of what it was. And so, I had gone out of the house for a little bit, and I came back, and Kaleo handed me this article, and it was a Goop article, like Gwyneth Paltrow's company, and it was a Goop article on conscious uncoupling.
Yeah, and I'll share a little bit about that, what was the impetus for that. Because we've had, sometimes if you've ever been in a relationship where you just can't see eye to eye on this one particular thing. I love her. She's my best friend. We get along fabulously. But in raising our kids, there's this one thing that kept on showing up, and we just couldn't get past it and see eye to eye on this thing. And I just thought to myself, man, how do people who I feel are conscious people and awake people, who are saying, I'm going to consciously uncouple in my life. I'm not getting a divorce because there's always a negative stigma with this thing, but I'm going to consciously uncouple from this relationship and still have a wonderful relationship with our kids and make this a beautiful thing. And I was like, well, I wonder if it starts by these people who love one another, who are then can't get beyond this thing. So again, many people who I admire have decided to consciously uncouple. So I looked into it, and I said, what does that really actually mean? So that's what brought me to that Goop article. And thank you, Gwyneth Paltrow. I appreciate you. Thank you, Goop.
Yeah, you should really
Love
spark
you.
something.
Yeah. So we dug into this article, and it was really beautiful, and I shared it with Mika.
Yeah, so so just imagine I'm out and about coming back. We just kind of had that that kind of friction, crying, how do we get out of this space? What's going on? We don't know. Come back to Cliff's like, here you go. How about this for a little read? And I look at the title, it's like Conscious Uncoupling. I'm like, oh, okay. But I knew we were in a space that we didn't want to be in anymore. And to be honest, I said, I love Kaleo with all my heart. And I thought, let me be open-minded here. Maybe there is something here. Like Kaleo said, there's a lot of people who we really admire who have gone through this process. And, maybe this is why all of this is happening right now. That this is what's in our highest light. So I read the article, and it was an absolutely beautiful article. Beautiful. It was so amazing. I recommend it.
Yeah, just look it up. Goop Conscious Uncoupling and GOOP.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But as I was reading it, Kaleo said, I was reading it with an open mind and an open heart. And Kaleo said, what did you get out of it? And, I told him, I said, I think this is a very beautiful thing for a lot of people. But it doesn't feel, when I think about my life without you, it doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. It's not, it's really not what I see as the highest version of us.
And I felt the same way after I read it, which is exactly why I gave you the article.
Yeah, I was like, phew, okay, we're on the same page. I was like, okay.
Because I said, I respect people who consciously uncouple, and they do that in an empowering way. I do. Who don't make it a divorce, but they say, how are we going to move forward? And if we have children, and make this a beautiful thing where we've just grown in different ways, and we're transforming in different ways, but yet we still respect and love one another. So let us consciously uncouple. And I thought to myself, that's a beautiful thing. So when we started looking into it, we're like, that's not what we want. But the gold within the article is why people consciously uncouple. Even people who are elevated and enlightened consciously uncouple. So in the article, they went into the idea that all of these things, all of the triggers that you have with your loved one, it could be your wife, it could be your girlfriend, it could be your children, it could be your parents. There's always a trigger that happens. And in a relationship between people who love one another and who've been married for 20 years, there's still triggers that come up. And if it's triggers that come up time and time again, you know that it's a trigger from the past. And so that's a clear indication that there's not the other individual who you're really getting triggered by, but there's actually an old story that you're getting triggered by. There's actually an old hurt and an old pain that hasn't been dealt with and hasn't been looked at and hasn't been healed. And
usually from childhood, right?
Usually from childhood. Something that's probably happened with your parents. And everybody on here knows, can pinpoint what those are generally. Sometimes it takes a little bit more digging in order to heal. But when you go back and you look at it and you say, wow, this is the reason why I got triggered. For me, because my father wasn't in my life, my trigger was that I wasn't lovable. And so that's what was showing up in my relationship with Mika. That in our parenting with our kids, if we would come to this disagreement about what to do in this one situation, and I would feel as though I was unlovable in that instant, and it would hurt so bad, and that trigger would come up like that. It's well up. And all of a sudden, I would be in this state that would bring me right back to when I was a child. But you don't see it like that. All you see is that other individual who you think is doing something to you, but it's not that.
Yeah.
It's always that old pain and that old hurt that needs to be addressed and healed.
You're seeing me as someone who's not loving you.
That's
that
right.
Really, that the story that you're running is that I'm not lovable. So
Yeah.
I'm going to show up in that way for you.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. And we're going to work through some processes on Valentine's Day that'll help work through that. But I want Mika to share her side of it as well.
Yeah. So mine, the trigger was like how we were parenting, right? And the kids would really like light that up. And for me, what I realized was I had this story. It's like there's the Kaleo that I know and love, and then there's this other version of Kaleo, that this story that I was running about who Kaleo is that has nothing to do with who Kaleo is at all. And when we tapped into it, I realized that what was happening was I was running this old story of victim, like that I was a victim. And this comes from, deep back in my childhood, a victim that I had to somehow protect myself against, emotional energies in the air. And so what I was doing was I was creating this character who is not Kaleo, but creating this story around him. And I was relating to him as the story, So what we came to the conclusion of is that we don't want to uncouple from each other, but what we're uncoupling from is the story that we're really running about ourselves. We think it's about the other person, but it's not. It's not. It's the story that we're running on ourselves, and that person is the trigger for that story. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that, and when that clicked in, it was like, that's it. That's how it is with your soulmate, the loved one. That's how it is with someone who you're having a challenging time with. It might be a friend. That's how it is with somebody who might be a girlfriend, husband or wife, partner. When you get triggered, it's never what they're doing. And so when we're talking about consciously uncoupling, and I'm really all for it. If individuals say, okay, it's time to split, let's consciously uncouple. And as I said, most times you're going to find somebody who's going to give you that same trigger in the next relationship. Many of you can relate to that. You go through one relationship and you have the trigger here, and you're like, oh, I'm done with this guy or girl. And you go on to the next one and you find the same thing. It's because it's the trigger. It's that emotional attachment. It's that energy that we're drawing in so that it can be healed. So we have an opportunity. These are always opportunities, even when we're triggered, an opportunity to heal. And that's why soulmates aren't necessarily always the ones who you absolutely love. It could also be the ones that you are the most challenging in your life, because those are the individuals who are helping you to grow, helping us to see something, helping us to build that compassion, helping us to build empathy, helping us to see a different perspective on that in that individual, in ourselves, in the world. And it always starts right here. Like Reverend Michael says, the answer is you. The answer is you, and it's always you. Like they said, you're the only problem that you'll ever have, and you're the only solution you'll ever have. So when we realize that we don't want to consciously uncouple from one another, but really we want to consciously uncouple from the story.
Yeah.
And so that was huge. And after that, we had a beautiful, intimate moment.
All right, we're not going to go into details, though, all right?
Okay, we won't go into details, but it was beautiful.
We're sharing a lot here,
okay? But it was beautiful. It was.
There was a lot of healing, okay? A lot of healing.
And so it was fantastic, and that's what's available when energy is shifted. Yeah. So when energy is shifted, and we say, okay, how can I address this instead of burying down our pain, burying down our the things that have been the old hurts, and having a different perspective so that we can shift that perspective in order for us to thrive, in order for us to be and thrive in our relationship, and thrive in our relationship with our friends and family, thrive in our relationship with our kids. We had to get to that point of pain. And then when you say, man, okay, I'm willing to do the work. And when you do that work, beautiful things are on the other side. Beautiful breakthroughs are on the other side. and beautiful connection is on the other side.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Friday on Valentine's Day, we will walk you through the process, the steps that we took to get to that healing space, because there's just so much gold. I mean, I can't tell you. It's like that space, that wall that was between us is like, it's gone. It's like, oh, we're back. We're back. So yeah, we'll take you through that process, because it's really powerful. It's really powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
So for anybody who is going to be on Valentine's Day at 1 p.m. on Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Right around the same time, anybody who is in a relationship, anybody who has a boyfriend, a girlfriend, anybody who's been married for 1 year, 5 years, been together for 20 years like Mika and I, or even further, or someone who's just on their own, they're just fine, they have relationships that they're looking to mend. We're going to walk you through the process on Friday, on Valentine's Day, the day of love, because we want to be able to help people to transform that and have a different perspective so that you can thrive in your life. Because that's what it's all about. Instead of just surviving, we're thriving.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful process. So we look forward to seeing you on Friday. Again, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We love you. Happy Valentine's Day, that week of love. See love in other people. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
I love that
That's
one.
Wayne Dyer. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's the truth. We love you.
Yes, lots of love.
Lots of love. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.